You weren't supposed to hear this, but here you are, not by chance. Something brought you here, something that's been waiting in your room longer than you've realized. You think you know what's sacred, you think that what's been blessed must be safe. But Padre Pio once whispered to someone in confession, "The danger is not in the object, it's in the heart that carries it." That man never slept in peace again, not until he removed the object from the room and repented. Tell me, have you ever felt it? That presence when everything is silent, when the lights are off, the prayers are said, the cross is in place, and yet something in your chest won't stop shivering, like something is watching you. Not evil, not obvious, just awake when it shouldn't be. If you've ever felt that even once, comment quietly. You're not alone. And no, you're not crazy, because this is more common than anyone dares to admit. Padre Pio warned, when the soul is not clean, even sacred things become heavy. Some of you are sleeping beside something holy, but waking up exhausted. You think it's a spiritual attack, but maybe it's your own spirit that's struggling to breathe under what you place beside it. There are 3 sacred objects people often keep in their room, not because they're dangerous, but because they become mirrors, and mirrors don't protect you if what they reflect is guilt. The first one, it's the one you touch most. Maybe a rosary under your pillow, a medal around your neck, a small crucifix on your shelf. You placed it there for comfort. But lately it doesn't comfort. It presses. It reminds. It weighs. Padre Pio said, "The soul that hides its wounds will feel holy things like fire. Not because the object changed, but because the soul did." There was a woman, very devout, who slept with her grandmother's crucifix above her bed. One night, she couldn't stop staring at it. Something felt wrong. She covered it with a cloth, thinking it was just in her head. But then, her dreams changed. She saw faces she didn't recognize, rooms she'd never entered, and always a presence just out of sight. One morning, the crucifix fell, not from wind, not from movement, just dropped, cracked in half. The wall was untouched, the nail still in place. She took it as a sign. She told her priest. He didn't bless it. He didn't exorcise it. He just asked, "Is there someone you still haven't forgiven?" She never answered, but she never hung it back up either. You don't need horror stories to know something is wrong. Sometimes, it's just that quiet discomfort that never leaves. The way your body feels tense near something that's supposed to bring peace, or the way your prayers stop mid-sentence when you glance at it. And if right now something in your room came to mind, don't ignore that. Maybe you received it as a gift. Maybe you bought it from a pilgrimage trip, thinking it must be safe. But blessings don't erase energy. If that object was ever prayed over with bitterness, fear, obsession, manipulation, it remembers, not visually, but spiritually. And if you're now holding it with that same kind of unrest in your soul, the echo continues. There was a man who wore a scapular every day since his divorce. He said it made him feel less exposed, but he also admitted he hadn't gone to confession in years. Padre Pio told him, "Don't wrap your wounds in cloth, wash them." What does that mean for you? It means, don't cling to the object hoping it will cover your pain. Clean the pain, then the object becomes what it was meant to be, a companion, not a burden. Have you ever looked at something sacred in your room and felt ashamed, like it was staring at you while you lived a life that didn't match your prayers? That's not superstition, that's your soul responding to something real. So tonight, do this. Light a candle, just one. Don't speak yet. Look around your room. Find the object you once trusted most, the one that's now quiet, but heavy. Sit near it and ask, what do you still carry from me? What part of my pain did I press into you? And if your hand trembles when you touch it, pay attention. Because Padre Pio said, sacred things are only dangerous when we use them to hide. He didn't say that to scare, he said it to save. If this is stirring something inside you, comment, share this with someone who's been waking up tired for no reason. And if you know what object I'm talking about, don't throw it away in fear, but don't sleep beside it tonight either. Because there are still 2 more. And the next one doesn't just sit in your room. It wraps around you. You can still undo it. Even now. You didn't think the danger could be closer than your bedroom. But it is, because the second object, you don't just keep it near you. You wear it around your neck, on your wrist, pressed against your chest while you sleep. It touches your skin. And you think that's protection. You think proximity equals power. But Padre Pio warned, there is no power in touching what you refuse to live. He wasn't speaking about witches or enemies. He was talking about us, devout, religious, well-intentioned, but still clinging to medals, scapulars, relics, not to walk in holiness, but to hide the fact that we're not. You may be wearing it right now. A medal of Saint Benedict, a crucifix, a brown scapular that has been on you for years. You've showered with it, slept with it, wept with it, but have you ever stopped to ask, what has it absorbed from you? Someone once told Padre Pio, I wear my medal so nothing can harm me. He said softly, then it's no longer a symbol. It's a shield made of fear, and fear is not faith. There was a man who wrote in his journal, never shared it, just wrote it for himself. He said, I wear a crucifix day and night, but every time I look in the mirror, I feel like it's accusing me. I drink. I sleep with someone who isn't my wife. I haven't confessed in a year, and still, I wear this. I don't know if I'm faithful or pretending. That's not blasphemy. That's a soul crying to be free from pretending. And if you've ever felt it, like the object on your body suddenly feels heavier than it used to, don't ignore that. That's your spirit saying, this doesn't match me anymore. You see, when a sacred object is worn without sacred living, it doesn't bless you. It breaks the agreement. Padre Pio said, the enemy is not offended by the medal on your neck. He laughs when your soul doesn't match your symbol. Maybe this sounds harsh, but you didn't come here for comfort. You came for truth. And the truth is, some people wear things they've never earned, not because heaven denied it, but because they never gave heaven room to enter. Let me ask you this, have you ever worn something blessed and still been tormented, still felt heaviness, still felt far from peace? Comment if yes, you're not alone. There was a young woman, grew up in the church, who wore a scapular since she was 15. She loved it, said it made her feel safe, but after her abortion, she couldn't wear it without feeling like it burned. Not her skin, her conscience. She kept it on anyway, thinking if she took it off, God would reject her, until one night, she had a dream. In it, Padre Pio stood in front of her and asked, why do you wear this? If you don't want to come home yet. She woke up sobbing, took off the scapular, not out of rebellion, but because she finally understood. She had turned the sign of grace into a mask, and grace never forces itself onto the unwilling. We don't talk about this, but sacred objects are not costumes, they're covenants, and when you wear one, but live in spiritual compromise, it doesn't just lose power, it can mark your disobedience louder than your prayers do. You may say, but I need it, it gives me strength, and yes, the saints gave us these devotions for a reason. They protect, they guide, they anchor, but only when the soul behind them walks in truth, not perfection but truth. So take a moment tonight, before you sleep, take off the medal, lay it in your hand. Don't throw it, don't shame it, just look at it. Ask, have I warned you to walk with God or to hide from Him? You'll feel it, you'll know, and if you feel resistance in taking it off, pay attention. Because sometimes we cling to sacred things not out of love for God, but out of fear of letting go. Padre Pio told someone once, you cannot put the cross around your neck if you refuse to carry it in your heart. That's not judgment, that's invitation. So here's what you do. Hold the object, speak honestly, even if your words are messy, even if all you can say is, I don't want to pretend anymore. That's enough. That's where heaven begins. And when you're ready, if you still feel drawn to wear it, do it not because you're afraid, but because you're home. If you're not ready yet, put it aside for now. Let your soul breathe. God doesn't need medals to find you. He needs you to stop hiding behind them. If you felt this, if something in your chest is tight right now, share this video. Someone else is wearing what you've been afraid to remove, and if you've worn something holy while living far from holiness, don't be ashamed. You're not alone, but you are being called, because the third object isn't something you sleep beside or wear. It's something you placed in your home long ago, and you forgot it was even there. You can still undo it. Even now. There's something about silence that reveals what noise tries to cover. You cleaned your room last week, dusted the shelves, rearranged your books, folded the laundry. But you didn't touch the drawer under your bed. You didn't open that box on the top shelf of your closet. You didn't look at the small wooden statue behind the picture frame, the one you placed there years ago and haven't touched since, but it's still there, watching, carrying, holding on. Padre Pio said, "What you forget, heaven still sees." This is the third object, and it's the most dangerous, not because of what it is, but because of what it remembers. You didn't mean to hide it. You just never dealt with it. Never dealt. Maybe it was a prayer journal from years ago. A gift from someone who's no longer in your life. A holy card from a funeral. A candle never burned. A statue that used to bring comfort now gathering dust. You didn't throw it away because it's blessed. But you haven't used it, haven't prayed with it, haven't touched it in years, and somewhere in your soul you know, it no longer reflects faith, it reflects neglect. Someone once told Padre Pio, "I still keep my old prayer altar, but I never kneel there anymore." Padre looked at him and asked, "Then who do you think is kneeling there now?" He wasn't accusing, he was warning, because sacred spaces don't go neutral. They remain doorways, open or closed, and if you abandon them, something else might fill the silence. Have you ever entered a room in your home and felt uneasy? Not afraid, just unsettled. Like something was out of place, though everything looked fine. Like the air itself had memory. That's not your imagination, that's what happens when faith is replaced by spiritual forgetfulness. There was a family with a small hallway shrine. A candle, a picture of the Virgin, a quote from Padre Pio. It used to be the heart of their home, until they stopped lighting it. The space grew quiet, dust settled, the hallway felt colder. Their youngest son began waking up crying, kept saying, "There's someone standing next to the lady with the stars." The mother finally stood before the statue one night, and felt her stomach twist. Not fear, just silence. And it wasn't peaceful. She cleaned the space, relit the candle, prayed aloud again. That same night her son slept through without waking. Some things don't need explanation, just recognition. Padre Pio said, "Abandoned devotion invites mockery, not from God, but from what listens in the silence." You might be thinking, "But I didn't mean to neglect it." And that's the point. Most spiritual damage doesn't come from rebellion. It comes from forgetting, because what you once used with reverence now sits without love. And spiritual objects left untouched too long become echoes. They don't curse you, they just reflect your absence. So tonight, look again. Slowly, carefully. What in your house have you labeled holy, but no longer treat with holiness? Is there a cross behind your bookshelf that hasn't been seen in years? A bottle of holy water that evaporated long ago? A relic or framed blessing buried behind boxes in your garage? Open that space. Not out of superstition, out of responsibility. Because what was once a doorway of light, when ignored becomes a crack where shadows gather. No lightning, no poltergeist, just low spiritual pressure, fatigue, confusion, a sense of spiritual distance, and you don't know why until you remember what you forgot. There was a woman who had a framed image of the Sacred Heart that hung beside her kitchen for decades. After her husband died, she stopped praying. She stopped lighting the candle that once flickered every evening. Years later, during a storm, the frame fell. The glass didn't break, but the wall behind it had mold. A black, thick stain, invisible until the picture dropped. It had been growing for years, slowly, quietly, behind something sacred that was never meant to be silent. Sometimes heaven allows things to fall, not to punish but to awaken. So here's your call tonight. You don't need to purge your house, but you do need to revisit it. Find the object you once loved, the one you promised to pray with, the one someone gave you at a funeral, the one you placed gently in a box, but never returned to. Take it out, hold it, and say this out loud: I remember you, and I remember what you meant. Then ask, does my life still match what this represents? If yes, return it to a place of light. Use it again. If no, don't leave it buried in dust. Bless it, wrap it, give it to someone who still burns for what you've let go. Or if your spirit says so, bury it, not in fear, in peace, because not every holy object is meant to follow you into every season, and keeping it may be why your soul hasn't fully stepped into the next one. Padre Pio said, "Grace lingers where devotion breathes, but it leaves when no one comes to greet it." So greet it again, or let it go. But don't ignore it, because forgotten things aren't always asleep. If this spoke to something you haven't touched in years, comment. Whisper the name of that object. Someone else might have the same one. And share this with someone who's felt spiritually numb and doesn't know why. You don't need a priest to feel it. You just need honesty. Because now, you know what's been calling from the silence, and what you do next opens or closes the doorway. You can still undo it. Even now. You've checked your room. You've looked at what you sleep beside. You've held the object you wear. You've even remembered what you forgot. And maybe for a moment you thought that was enough. But Padre Pio never said there were only three. He said, some objects don't hang, they don't sit, they don't gather dust. They live inside you, and they speak louder than your prayers. The fourth object is not in your house, it's in your mind. And it's not something you picked up. It's something you let in and kept. An image, a phrase, a memory, a belief. A spiritual concept that felt holy at the time but was never from God. Something someone said. Something you misheard. A moment when your heart was raw, and someone handed you a conclusion, and you never questioned it. That is the fourth object. And it may be the most dangerous of all. Because while the others weigh on your room, your skin, your shelves, this one wraps around your identity. It whispers into how you pray, how you suffer, how you expect punishment, how you interpret silence from heaven. Let me ask you this. Have you ever thought, maybe I deserve the pain? Or, I shouldn't ask for more, I already failed once? Or, God protects others, not me, I've gone too far? Where did those thoughts come from? Because Padre Pio said, the enemy's favorite relic is a lie that you believe without discernment. You may think it's humility, but it's not. You may think it's surrender, but it's shame. And shame is not sacred. There was a man who confessed to Padre Pio, I think my prayers bounce off the walls because I'm not worthy of miracles. Padre Pio didn't shout, he didn't correct, he just whispered, that thought is not from heaven, return it. And that's the key. You are carrying a thought that doesn't belong to you, but you've worn it like faith. Some people go to bed with sacred objects, but they wake up with spiritual heaviness not because of what's around them, but because of what's inside. The fourth object might be a childhood memory, a priest who once scolded you too harshly, a mother who told you God punishes bad children, a father who left and made you believe God leaves too, and now you carry that. Not visibly, but spiritually. And every time you pray, that object sits between your voice and God's ears. Padre Pio said, the most dangerous lies are the ones spoken without sound. Have you ever felt that God was near, but not for you, that you could watch others heal, others rejoice, others receive? But for you, it's always delay, silence, shadow. That's not heaven's verdict. That's the leftover of that false belief you've carried too long. If this feels too abstract, let me show you how it works. You kneel to pray. You say the words. But before you finish, something inside you whispers, "But he won't listen." Not really. You light a candle, but a thought immediately says, "What's the point?" You wear the medal, but deep down feel like you're faking. You walk through your house with holy water, but still feel dirty. That's not your conscience. That's something that quietly poisons your prayers. It slipped in and stayed. Tonight, I want you to ask the one question you've never dared to ask yourself. What belief am I carrying that heaven never gave me? Don't rush it. Don't invent something. Just sit in silence, and the thought will come, because it always does. And when it does, don't argue with it, don't fight, just speak the truth to it. Whisper, "You're not from God, you don't belong here anymore." Because even if you throw away the object on your shelf, even if you stop wearing the thing that burdens you, even if you remember the old altar and restore it, if you don't confront the thought, you'll rebuild everything and still feel empty. Padre Pio once said, "The most sacred cleansing begins in silence, when the lie is named and dismissed." So tonight, dismiss it. Write it down if you must. Burn it. Replace it. Speak out loud the opposite. If the thought says, "God left me," respond, "You're still here." If the thought says, "I deserve the attack," whisper, "I was chosen for protection." If the thought says, "This is my punishment," speak, "This is my moment of return." Because this is not about superstition. This is about reclamation. You are a temple. And temples don't just house sacred objects, they expel what defiles the altar. So go to the deepest altar now, the one between your ears, the one shaped by memory, pain, silence, and shadows, and clean it, not with anger, not with panic, but with light. And when the thought tries to whisper again tomorrow, just say, "Padre Pio told me to return you." If this struck something you didn't expect, comment. Whisper the belief you now recognize isn't yours, or don't. But promise yourself, you won't wear it anymore. And if someone you love has carried the same silent object, send them this, because the final part of this journey is not about what you carry anymore. It's about what you've passed down without knowing. You can still undo it, even now. So now you know. You've seen the 3 objects in your room. You've uncovered the 4th one, buried in your mind. And maybe you've already begun removing them, gently, quietly, like someone peeling back old bandages from an invisible wound. But I need you to understand this. This was never about fear. This was never about superstition. This was never about objects at all. It was about what those objects carried and what they revealed about your heart. Padre Pio never told anyone to throw away what was sacred. He asked them to return to what was true. He once whispered to a woman who burned her old prayer books out of shame, "God doesn't need you to destroy what hurt you. He just needs you to no longer worship it." And that is where we are now. The turning, the shifting, the doorway, because for every object removed, heaven places something back. Not another medal, not another cross, but something invisible, weightless, but more real than anything you've touched. It begins when the room feels lighter, not because the object is gone, but because your soul no longer fears it. It continues when your sleep begins to deepen, not because darkness left, but because you no longer agree with it. And it explodes into motion when your heart says, without panic, without pressure, "I'm ready for something real now." You see, the lie was this, that you needed protection because you were in danger. But the truth is this, you were always being protected, you just couldn't feel it through the noise of all you placed between yourself and God. The objects were not evil. The silence was not abandonment. The delay was not punishment. They were signs, echoes, gentle cracks in your armor so light could seep in. Padre Pio once said, "Heaven does not shout, it waits until you remove the noise." And you've removed it. Maybe not perfectly, maybe not fully, but enough for heaven to lean closer now. There was a woman who kept a statue in her room for 10 years. She never prayed with it, only kept it because someone said it was blessed, but she hated it, couldn't say why. One day, she wrapped it, placed it in a box, and gave it to a nearby convent. That night, for the first time in years, she dreamed, not of shadows, not of fear, but of a corridor of light. At the end, Padre Pio stood with a soft smile and said, "You made space. Now I can bring you what was always yours." And that's the mystery most forget. When you remove what never belonged, you don't just become emptier. You become available for real peace, for real presence, for real guidance. So here's what comes next. You light one candle. You say nothing. You don't beg. You don't perform. You just sit, open-palmed, and whisper the one thing no object ever asked you to say. "Come, Lord. Come how you want. I won't block you anymore." And He will. Not in thunder, but in the rearrangement of your days, the sudden calm in your house, the unexpected clarity in your mind, the warmth that enters your room at 3:13 a.m. and doesn't leave, because heaven doesn't come where it's crowded, it comes where it's been invited. And your act of removing these objects wasn't rejection, it was invitation. There was a young man who had worn a crucifix since childhood. After hearing Padre Pio's words, he took it off for the first time. Not because he hated it, but because he no longer wanted to wear something he didn't live. 2 weeks later, after daily prayer, he felt ready again. He blessed it anew, placed it on his chest and said, "This time, I'm wearing it from the inside out." That night he wept, not from guilt, but from release. And maybe you don't feel ready to wear anything again. That's okay. Holiness doesn't begin with the object, it begins with space. And right now you've made space. Your room is no longer confused, your shelves are no longer witnesses to contradiction, your body is no longer weighed by what your heart couldn't carry. And your mind, your beautiful, tormented, sacred mind, is finally beginning to forget what God never said and remember what He never stopped saying. Padre Pio once told a woman who cried over the silence of heaven, "The silence ends when the lies do." And if you followed this far, the silence is ending for you too. So here's how this ends, not with a ritual, not with a fire, with a whisper. Whisper this now, wherever you are. I remove what doesn't belong, not because I'm afraid, but because I'm ready. Then say, I am ready for the sacred thing that does belong to me. And that thing, it's already coming. It might be peace, it might be clarity, it might be a voice you haven't heard in years. But it's coming, because you've cleared the room, you've taken off the mask, you've uncovered the shelf, you've named the lie, and now you've opened the door. Padre Pio promised, for every soul that dares to be clean again, heaven sends what cannot be bought. So prepare yourself, because something holy is coming. And this time, it's meant for you. If these 5 moments have touched your soul, comment one word. Ready, because that's the only word heaven needs. And if someone you love still sleeps beside the object, still wears the weight, still forgets the box, still believes the lie, send them this, and them. This isn't a warning anymore, it's a calling. You can still undo it, even now.